All right, all you devils out there, how's it going? Happy Bitcoin Friday. Here we are, what are we, August 7th? Coming up on noon here. So I said we've got a really active vote tally going on. So of course we'll do Bitcoin as it's Friday, but it's a lot of, you guys are spread all over the place. So it'll be interesting to see. I'll try and get 3 today. Oh, members, right? So the other 2 will likely just stay for members here. But as we get, of course, Bitcoin will go up on YouTube. Now, I'm not one to pimp a lot, but my marketing guys get on my ass if I'm not mentioning here, right? Just the opportunities here. You can join us, right? You can join us in the free, right? Like, just a reminder, because I get a lot of comments on the YouTube videos. Say, hey man, do you have a Discord? I'd like to learn some more. How does that work? Why don't I see? Well, so the free, the joining us for free here, clicking this, that's what that does, right? It gets you into the Discord. But it also gets you the white belt test, right? Which we now is freely available to anyone, right? All you have to do is join us, right? Super easy. 4 hours of content. It's not lightweight material. Now, I had a few comments because I really went into a lot of detail yesterday in the Canadian dollar video about how we use the measured moves as they would relate to algos, and people asking about that. Well, I go over that in great detail in the blue belt, so that you won't get access to that as a free member. If you want to get into the belt system, well, you got to go educational. But this is a great way to get started, get a feel for the community, right? Get a sense of, shit, right? There's a lot of free Discords out there, but so, find out whether or not we're a good fit for you. You'll find very like-minded people following the methodologies that we teach. So this is a nice stepping stone. Now, right, so if you're not interested in the belt system, social is kind of our in-between, right? So you'll get access to a lot of content. The only thing you don't get access to is the belt system, right? So just keep that in mind. I do see a lot of those comments and people saying, hey, could you explain how that works? Well, I do quite a lot of explaining it on every video that we post up here, but if you really want to get into it, right, the blue belt would do it for you. Now, in addition to that, those of you that kind of got a handle on it, but you don't quite understand it, and you'd like a little context, and where did this come from? And well, this coming Thursday, I will be doing a webinar for Ninja Trader here. It's 4:15 Eastern time, where I'm really going to go over where this all came from, right, and how we incorporated it and kind of the background there. So, as is the nature with Ninja Trader's webinars, right? It's not promotional; it has to be educational. So, of course, that is, I would tell you, is the most important algorithm in the market, which I'll show you here in a few minutes. But that's not the only algorithm, as I'm also about to show you in a minute. So, but I just reference this here. They record it as well, so you can catch it on a replay. But there'll be a lot of content there, so if you're kind of curious about where all that came from and how it works and how you apply it, well, that's a good place to start if you're not quite ready for the belt system and you really want to get into the down and dirty on it, like where it came from, how to use it, and why it's so critical. Well, the blue belt really, I think there's three separate videos on it in there, so you're really going to understand it coming through that. But if you're not ready for that yet, you come in and join us for free, right? That white belt will challenge you, right? I've got a lot of people come in and say, oh, white belt piece of cake, right? So they don't study for it, and they go in and they fail, because we're not, right? We're not making it easy just so you can feel a sense of progress. We're making it challenging so that if you get through it, you own that material. Now you're ready for more advanced material. Excuse me, guys. So just a reminder, right? It's TradeDevils.com. Plans and prices, right? If you're not ready for educational, well, you got some other choices. Okay, let's go over to Bitcoin. All right, so there's not a lot to add here, but this is, no sooner do I talk about the measured move indicator here, I'm going to show you another algorithm, but let's just do a couple things here first. So just to review, right? Just very quickly, right? So this pivot here is important, right? So because this is the pivot that set up the big measured move that took us down, right? Here's the 50. We go right to target now, right? So now you would be drawing it down here for the next one, and then you'd be pulling up here. So we know, right? We hit 65 to the tick, and now we're struggling here at the 50. So now, of course, you look at that and you go, well, wait a minute, does that mean that there's an algo target down below, right? That we're going down to get that, if I get that thing to fire? Well, that's below zero, right? So I know they're probably, Oh, this is some fucking lunatic. I don't know, Peter Schiff. Some of these people who think Bitcoin's going to zero, I find that hard to believe that they still maintain that stance. But you know, if you're just looking at this, applying this, you'd say, well, all right, we're going to zero. Well, not so fast, right? That certainly is not what I anticipate happening here. But just looking at the algorithm, right? You say, well, okay, they're going to stay short, right? Isn't that what you tell me? They're going to stay short. Well, you know, this wasn't a bad trade. Right there, we have 14,000 to 3,000, right? But they didn't get to target. So now as we come back up, so knowing now here we hover here at the 50. Well, remember that this pivot here is you know very critical to understanding where the algorithms are playing, because that pivot, right, is what led to that target. So you can kind of understand why we'd be stalling, and then right, take that out of it, right? So price action guys, right? So, you know, they're looking here going, say, oh, yeah, it was support, it was resistance. Yeah, we got up above it here, but now we're hovering here. So and then you look at point of control and you go, oh, okay, interesting, right? So you get that this nice. Well, what's interesting about that? Look how it frames the volume profile here, right? We're point of control and then up to this 50. Now, granted, that's visible range, so it moves as I move this, but we come down here. Right, you kind of get a nice sense of framing. So, of course, we're going to focus on this move here. So let me get this out of here. Right? This is so there will be no Elliott applied here. for those of you that are like, fuck, I'm so tired of the Elliott, because you know, I mean, look, so I'm on a 24-hour here. This is, if you want to simplify this, which there's value in doing this. Right? If you just look at what we're doing here, just to take your Elliott hat off and just look at the price action here. What we seem to be doing is we get a thrust, then we go sideways. Then we get a thrust, then we go sideways. Thrust. Now, are we going sideways? Well, you know, if you kind of map that out, swing sideways, swing sideways, swing sideways. So it's like stair stepping. So is there a really pristine Elliott count in here? Well, there's a count, right? Yeah, right. But do we have the nice, right? We don't have the nice. Yeah, that's what you hope for, right? But right, the market doesn't always cooperate. Elliott's not perfect, right? As I try to remind you guys, seeking perfection is a mistake, right? It's not about perfection. It's about probabilities. So when you look here at this, so you know you might go through that process and say, okay, I got one in here, like 5. Okay, well that seems like 5. Well, you know, Elliott Wave. I mean, there's God knows how many rules are, but if you really just boil it down to the essence of really what was Elliott's, you know, genius, his discovery, which is forever changed trading, is that the market moves in 5s and 3s. Now, those that, you know, Elliott critics, right, they'll bicker with me on that. But at its foundation, it's all about 5s and 3s, right? And then stringing them together, and then you've got your, you know, all of your corrections, which are more complicated. But it's really, really at its simplest, right? It's 5s and 3s. Now, do we have a 5 here? Well, if we're going thrust, sideways, thrust, you could make a case we got a 5 there. And really, right, I'm simplifying, but this is really a 3, right? Now, you know, of course, we complicate the fuck out of that, but it really, at its core, the major swings, that's a 3, right? There's your corrective 3. Now, are we doing a 5 here? Kind of looks that way, doesn't it? It's sloppy. And again, it's not that pristine movement that you'd like to see. But the idea being, okay, well, just looking at it, right? If you look in terms of just our understanding how the market typically moves, it feels top heavy, doesn't it? It's because we haven't had a decent retracement, right? We've not had something to kind of generate that energy cycle. It's just, yeah, we so thrust sideways. Now, if we're gonna continue to do that? Well, that would be somewhat unusual, right? It's more typical for the market to at least make it, well, as we just looked at, make a 50% retracement. And if it's not going to be a 50, right, we look for a 618, right? We know Bitcoin is incredibly responsive, right, to the golden zone, 50, golden zone. Now it's just nonstop, right? So on this one, now we're through, right? So the fact that we're through the one from 14, right, it's very, very encouraging for bulls. But at some point, you want it to correct. Now I know, shit, I'm as long as anyone, right? I'm long and holding, but so there, I get the idea. It's like, oh, come on, man, just keep going, right? Keep going. 100,000 by the end of the year, new highs, but or 2021, new highs by the end of the year. I mean, I see the same, Twitter posts, right, from the influencers in the space, right? I'm not trying to bundle myself in there, but all right, I mean, I've long been. I mean, I was bullish here, I was bullish here, I was bullish here, right? So I've gone through crypto winter right along with all of you guys. Still a bull. But as a trader, just looking here, it just feels kind of top heavy. So there's a couple things we could do. So one, since we haven't had a decent correction, this is not a bad application for a regression channel. Just swing high to swing low. So right, we get a center line here, we get a median line, then we're 2 standard deviations on either side, right? So it's a nice framing of a trend. Now we're pushing up to the upper boundary here, and you could make the case as long as we stay within this channel, the trend stays strong. Well, there's a couple things you could do here in terms of trend strength. Right? Did we look like we've got the, so again, if this is just part of this process of swing sideways and then swing again, well, right, we'll just carry on. So we can use this regression channel as kind of a framing of this trend. Well, another indicator that's very useful for trend strength, right? It's an ADX indicator. So I've got one on here, and there's a bunch of them here on TradingView. There's nothing particularly special about this one, although I like the way you've got your color coding here, and you get your, essentially what we see here when we get above the threshold line here of 100, when you get above this, it's telling you, hey, heads up, the trend is likely, right? It doesn't stay up here, right? So look, we get there, correct, right? We get there. Well, this, if you're not familiar with ADX, right? So it's showing trend strength. So the fact that it's going up here is reflected that the downtrend is hitting potentially exhaustion, right? So that's the color coding of red versus green. So here we're up again, but now it's an uptrend here, obviously downtrend, right? Same here, downtrend. We get this, what you got here was a little bit of divergence. So you see here we get the high is right here, but then we get a new high, but you don't get the same thing. So you get a little divergence there with the ADX, right? It's just something to kind of look for. Would I trade off of it? Not necessarily. There'd need to be something more there, but that's a heads up, right? Just noticing that. And then you get a little chop zone here, right? So lack of trend. So now you put that kind of in the context of what we were just talking about, where, here we kind of start, but here we go, and then we're sideways. So look, as you look down, right? No trend, right? We're just sideways. Now we go trend again, right? So up we go, right? Here's the trend exhaustion, then we lack of trend, right? We go sideways, right? Now up we go. So you can kind of see how that plays. So as we sit here now, having hit that with the potential exhaustion, now understand it can stay up here, right? That doesn't mean we have a top and we must retrace, but you can look at that and say, well, last time, pretty much every time it gets there, we get some sort of a retrace. So again, it's not infallible. There is no perfect indicator, but it's just one more little tell. You can kind of look at this and go, man, looking kind of like it needs it, right? You need to recycle, right? It's like drawing the string of a bow, right? I need the recycle so we got the energy to get there. But one other thing that really stands out here, right? I'm going to take this. I'll take this off. Maybe bring it back. But if we go back to this idea of swing, retrace, swing size, it's actually moving with precision that is way too precise. And I've shown this a few times here. We've looked at the Wolf range. It's just range expansion. But really dial this in. I'm going to put it on here. So here's the idea, right? So we swing sideways, swing side. We go sideways here. Now swing. Now look at how precise this is. Right, so here's the range, right? So it's Wolf range. I call it Wolf range. It's a guy who taught it to me. Here's the range, right? Now here's the expansion of the range. So here's the initial range. Here's exactly 100% expansion, right? Within a tick. Now the blue lines are the 50s. So here, nothing, because we haven't had a 50 here. But now here's the 50 here. Look at this to the tick. Now we go up here, here's the next 50. That's to the tick. Zero possibility that that's random. Zero. That's totally an algorithm, right? Only software is that precise. So looking here as we bump our heads here, right, so you can kind of see, well, if we're going to go sideways for a while, you know, chop in this range, we're going to go sideways. Well, if we're going to carry on with this swing sideways and then expansion, well, there's your next target, 1385. And then you kind of put that together and you say, well, what? How would that look up here when we've got this nice little fat wick sitting up here? Let's get it really dialed in. Right, we get just this little, you know, this is our last little pump high, right? You know, there's some famous guy, Instagram guy, who was famous for loading up. I don't know, he bought a couple $100,000 worth of Bitcoin at the pivot high. Shit, maybe it's the 20. I can't remember. I just remember that story. Right, it was clearly late to the party. So as we come up here to double top there, see, you can kind of see right now, if we start to come down, where are you looking for support? Now, here, so as I'm looking at this and, you know, trying to look for something both in terms of where the next trade might be, but also just trying to teach you guys. This level of precision, you want to pay attention to that, right? Again, that is zero possibility that's random. So looking at that, see, Gann had a technique where, of course, Gann is always squaring and then cutting in half and cutting in half again. Now, my Gann enthusiasts here will probably, I'll hear about it, because I'm not a master of Gann's work. But I have some really enthusiastic students that love his stuff. One technique that was taught to me, which, by the way, I will be focusing on that a little bit in this in that webinar that I'll be doing. Let's get back here. So with Gann, one of the things that was taught is taught to me in terms of projection. So with Gann, it wasn't so much about, so if you were thinking about a measured move, and this we're just to simplify, if this was the length of a swing, and this was A to B, well, and this is B to C. Well, the location of C wasn't as important in terms of projecting. So when you think about the algo swings that we work with, that you know, based off of the Fibonacci, right? So when we get 50 not being a Fibonacci, but based off of the golden zone then going to the -23.6 or the -618. See, the location of here, let me just get it back on so make the point here. The location of B to C is critical, right? So if we're here, or even if we're here, right? So think we're up here. Well, this location here of what happens here at either the 50 or the golden zone that's the key in terms of where our target is. Well, with Gann, he did a little bit differently. So he would say, okay, there's a box. Well, Gann, everything's a square, right? So he would create a box. I'm not going to get this exactly right. That's about as close as I can get it on a box. Pretty close. It's just eyeballing it, right? So he's going to cut it in half. They cut it in quarters. Probably keep going, cutting in half. But this, all right. So as it was taught to me. So take it easy, Gann enthusiasts. This is how it was taught to me. If we have a swing, well, you might anticipate the 25, the 50, or the 75 as a support zone, right? Here, right. So squaring the squaring. You might anticipate some of these locations, but this location did not affect what you were projecting to. What you were projecting to was, if you squared it, cut it in half and cut it in half, but you kept that going, right? It was kind of as we've done here. So, I'm not making this more complicated than maybe need be, right? So here's the first square, cut it in half, right? So here's the second square, right? We cut it in half, right? The same idea. So he would say, well, if the bigger square is all right here, and we're cutting it in half, well, this just keeps going. So in case the wolf range, the range expansion is just going to keep going, right? So we would go, oh shit, I locked it. So if we'd go from here, we'd go from the first swing where I get 100. Well, now I would go from here to the next 100, which is right here. Right, so you see I've created a new range because I'm repeating where I get the 100. So here's the first, so I know I have the swing right here, right? Because look at that, right? So I know I've got it right? And then again and again and again. So I know this is where the algorithm is playing. I can see it, right? It's leaving footprints. You just have to know how to look for it. So now I go here for the 100. Now, if I apply Gann's method here, and again, let me try and not offend my Gann enthusiasts, right? So again, this it may not be a perfect square, but the idea being cut it in half, cut it in half, cut it in half, cut it in half. So if this keeps going, you would take the 25, the 50, and the 75, and you just run them up, and you could cut those in half, so you'd have the 12, 5, and the 25. Well, this is some of the training we have in Vimeo for our Gann enthusiasts. But if I take this same, if I take my fib tool here and I put my Gann targets on it, all right, so here's the box. Right? So if I put the whole thing back together, you'd have, here's the box, right? Here's 50%, right? And if I was, let's see if I do it this way. So I'd be cutting it in half here, and then cutting it in half, and then cutting it in half again. But taking this up, it just would continue on. Well, here's 12.5, here's 25. So that's how that was taught to me, right? You would take the length of a swing right here that we knew, right? Well, we had the squaring of price and time, right? So here's my 100. Now here's my 12.5, here's my 25. So for a Gann projection as a target, that's to the tick. Now we put back on the wolf range, right? And we see, okay, well, that was wolf with 50s. So we put it back here, put it back here, right? Let's get my wolf with 50s, or I could do wolf with 25s, right? So it's the same idea, right? Here's with the 25s, right? So here's 50. Here would be, see, so here's 25, 50, 75, 100. 12.5 would be your first target, then here's 25, and then 50, right? So it could keep going. But just the pure Gann technique for projecting a target, we've just hit first target. Now, if you put that in the context of our traditional measured move, based off David Halsey's work, right? So, right, that he's being the first one to identify this as an algorithm. Well, look at the two targets. Right? Boom. So now you look at that and you go, okay, so I've got a Gann target, I've got a wolf range target. Now here, all I've got is the 23, right? If this is the swing, all I did was tag the 23. So is that an algorithm? Hard to say, right? As to whether or not you would have a retracement algorithm, it'd more likely be tied to a different pivot, right? So maybe it's this one here, right? So whether that one gets through the golden zone. So you're kind of looking for it here. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Is it here? Well, there's the fifth. Well, pardon me. You don't really have it. It kind of brings you back to where, right? So then the other thought is you would use an extension from a high to a high. Well, maybe, right? But we're 2 and 3. There's second target. That could be. You might use the lower target here. So you'd see what I'm doing here. So I'm going swing high to swing high. Here's the 50. Now we're going up. Well, here's the, here's your first target. Now here would be second target. It's just different ways to get there. That's kind of what I'm getting at here. Just some different ways, and just a little content here that we just in terms of a different approach to measuring for that target. So putting that all back together, this pivot looks like it could be a little top heavy here. Now that doesn't mean that we must stop there. So I come back to this and say, all right, well, it doesn't mean that the trend is over, but if we were to retrace a little bit, something like, oh shit, it's not too hard to spot it. Let's see if I can do it this way. All right, we do something like that. Oh, well, here's the structure. Right, even if you just get it over here. Well, here's my structure. If we're gonna come down here because we've hit a target here, we're gonna, maybe we'll do it in 3, something like that. You got a heads up there. Now, if you're, because there is an Elliott count here, and I'm just gonna kind of, loosely throw it on here. All right, so I think this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's get that up. All right, so we can work a count in here. Right, we got a kind of a funky triangle. Up we go for a 5. So you can make a case there's a completed impulse there. A little funky on the start, right? We eventually we worked out a count here. They had to have a little triangle in there, but we could make that work. So we've got our 5 here. So if you're right, not interested in any of that, and you just want to stick with traditional fib retracements, right? So here's, right, swing high to swing low. All right, if this is a 1, well, right, bulls may not be too excited about that. Right? I mean, I just see posts all the time. Well, Bitcoin's never going under 10 again. Well, maybe, but if we were to do something like that, that's I don't think you'd want to be discouraged terribly if we got that deeper correction, right? I know, right? So yeah, you say, you know, look at my portfolio here with Bitcoin up at 12, looks great. Now we're going to come down to 8. I know, right? You feel the pain and like you want it to keep going. But if we're doing that, I don't think that's despair. I think that's opportunity. But let's see, right? Now we're at the 50. We didn't get the next 100. So let's see if the 50 is going to stall it, right? Or we just get a typical retrace back to structure. We know there's resistance here, right? It's very rare. We'd hit it 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And we're going to come back here. So we know we've got potentially some support there that might keep that going. So, what's that going to do to the Elliott count? Right, the Elliott count is going to get back to what is so common with Bitcoin is that the Elliott count is elusive until it's done. Very hard to predict where you are. So right now, if I had to bet on where we're headed, I tell you that's where we're headed. Does that mean I'm going to short it? Absolutely not. I never short Bitcoin. I have no interest in shorting Bitcoin. I'm only interested in buying Bitcoin. Now, if I get the opportunity, yeah, I'm going to take some drawdown, right? I'm going to give back. But if I get that opportunity, I'm all over that. Right? I would encourage you to as well. But that's a long way down, right? So something's going to have to trigger that. Otherwise, we're going to have a really unusual count because we're going to have this is just going to continue, right? The swing, sideways, sideways, right? How many times can we do that before we get a meaningful retracement? Well, I just kind of looked at this before, like where would you like that 50 to be? That's about where you'd like it to be. All right, so if we could get up here, get past that high, we pushing, what are we at there? 14 and change. Oh, shit, I can't even see it. 14, high 14s. So you'd have your 50 and your golden zone, again, even higher, but something like that would be just ideal. So then this moves up here. But we're not there yet, right? That's going to take a pretty good kick. Now, give me my 3 here. Now we're going big. But not there yet. We're sitting right here, stuck at that pivot, going sideways. Having just put in an exhaustion move here, potential now, right? The potential, what you'd anticipate is this, right? Sideways, right? Just looking at what it's done historically. So there's not a trade here. I wouldn't be adding to any longs here. I never short, so I'm not looking to short. I know, right? I have many on my team short, buy, sell, short. They're long, short all the time, right? It's just not me. Well, partly I don't have time to do it. But my point being, I'm not suggesting a sell here. But I'm also not suggesting a buy. So I'm really, there's a little education perhaps here. Hopefully you haven't tuned out yet, right? But if we come down to something like that, that's your next, like clear, clean. Okay, I can see the impulse. I got a 3. I'm at a 50. I'm a buyer all day. Are we going 7? Oh shit! I mean, we could, right? Nothing says we couldn't. But you don't want to do it in a 5, right? Because that would imply there's more to come. So what you'd hope here is that what you're going to see, anything that comes in a 3. Shit, that's a long video for not having much to say. Okay, well, hopefully you got a little content out of that. I think you're... All right, if we're just going to go sideways, next kick would be up to the next range expansion. Okay, guys, there you go. I'll be back... I can't even tell what we got here. Looks like it may be Band, Ripple, Kava. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, members will be back here to you shortly here. Okay, guys, have a